Steve Coates will call the action with Tim Saunders tonight as the Flyers take on the Rangers. All guests appear via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. And Coatesy, it wouldn't be talking Flyers unless we talked about the goaltenders. We'll lead off with that. Alex Lyon going to get the call tonight. Any surprise from you, Stephen J. Coates?
Absolutely not. I think Alex Lyon deserves to be the starting goaltender tonight. I mean, he's actually been the one constant. Now, in saying that, Mrazek has played really good or really bad. There has been no in-between. So has he lost his games? Yes. Has he won his games? Yes. So I guess in your emotional look at this, we're probably running 500 with Mrazek. But when you look at Lyon, he's been thrown into the Lions' den on 2 occasions and played really, really well. And I think ever since his first opportunity to start the National Hockey League, where he was clearly nervous, clearly a train wreck as far as moving in there and understanding what he had to do, he's there right now. I'm very confident in him tonight.
Coatsy, from a procedural move, Stolarz was reassigned from Reading to the Phantoms. Pretty soon, the Flyers are going to have a ton of options in net. Michael Neuvert made the trip to Detroit and is skating and getting closer. Elliott getting closer. I mean, is that a strength or a weakness that they have all these names?
I don't know the answer to that. How much more honest can I be? I mean, Neuvert hasn't been a confidence builder this year, so you can't say that that's a plus. Like we're all sitting, anxiously awaiting Michael Neuvert to come back. I would think of all those goalies, I'd be anxious to see Brian Elliott back, because Brian Elliott has had a heck of a year. He played very solidly throughout the year, got a tough break and having, pulled that muscle or tore a muscle, had to have surgery. You always worry about a guy, especially a goaltender, coming off that type of surgery. But that's the one of all the players, all the goalies right now, that's the guy that I would be really happy to see back in that.
Looks like Brandon Manning may return to the lineup again tonight, too. Robert Haig had played the last 2 games with Gudas, and maybe Haig and Gudas, they were a -2 in Detroit. Is that just a reaction by Coach Hack saying, like, look, let's switch this back to what we had and see what we get?
Well, it's not really, because Robert Haig had been a mainstay back on the blue line all year until he had the injury for 2 weeks. So basically, this will be the first time that Robert Haig's a healthy scratch, and what it's saying is that he's been making too many mistakes. Way too many times he's been caught pinching at a time where he should have been pinching. And the results have not been good, where the other team has scored. The other night, he got caught. The Flyers got caught 4 deep. They came back 2-on-1 with Larkin taking the shot, and they scored a goal on that. And you just can't have that happen at this time of year. And that's just a time now where Robert Haig's going to say, hey, settle down, understand, maybe look upstairs, see what's going on, understand when to pinch, when not to pinch, and we'll move you back in the lineup when called upon.
Hey Coachy, what goes into Hackstall, or any coach really, deciding who's going to take the shootout shots?
It's all done by, past performance. Who makes the decision? It's a coaching, all the coaches.
No. I mean, I'm sure Hackstall picks, though, but I mean, is there any rhyme or reason, or just like, hey, I got a feel, or, analytically, you're better against this goalie, or because, I was away last week, but I saw a lot of people really getting on him about not going with Giroux, because now he has not historically been great in shootouts, but apparently, he had played well that night. But to me, playing well in that particular game doesn't mean necessarily that you're the best option for the shootout.
In answer to your question off the front end, take all the characteristics that would go into the decision-making of a shootout. The past performance, the goalies, the feel of what's going on, the type of goalie for the other team, like what's his strengths. Are you going to use a guy that can fire the puck very quickly upstairs against a goaltender that has a hard time with his glove hand? Little idiosyncrasies like that. Then you take a look at a guy like a Franz Nielsen. What made Franz Nielsen so easily shoot that and score that goal against Alex Lyon. He's the number one shooter in the history of shootouts in the NHL. Franz Nielsen. All he went in, bang, just fired the puck in the corner of the net like it was nothing. But you said Giroux, okay, for all the people who wanted Giroux in there. Hasn't scored a shootout goal this year. Patrick has. So why? Is it because Claude Giroux is Claude Giroux?
I would agree. I would agree with you that just being Claude Giroux and from what I was reading. Now, again, I was in Clearwater just reading people's tweets for whatever that's worth. But people were saying he had played a very active game, and I'm thinking, well, who the hell cares if he has? To my knowledge, he's not a very good performer in the shootout. Just because you had an active game doesn't necessarily mean I want you taking the now. Do I want the 19-year-old rookie in that spot? I don't know. I mean, you might have a better pick than I would in that spot, but I didn't have a problem with Patrick over Giroux, but you might say I would have rather seen someone else over Patrick.
To be very frank, at this point in time, the Flyers are the worst shootout team in the history
ever.
So
what I heard the other night, what are they like 30-something and 86 or something like that?
Oh, it's just scary. That's why it's always my key to the overtime. Get it done into 5 minutes because your percentages of winning in the shootout are minimal. Do everything you possibly can. Pull everything out of the stops to be able to try to win in overtime because it's just no good in shootouts. Why? Who knows? The goaltenders sometimes, maybe the shooters, but I might try three defensemen sometimes just to try to change it up.
Detroit tried. They gave you a 4-on-3 to start the overtime.
Well, they didn't give it to me. They gave it to the team.
Good point.
But you still got to score in a 4-on-3. I mean, it's like putting on a plate. Let more ice. Actually, the overtime, Alex Lyon saved them in the overtime. He had four stellar saves.
And that save with minimal time left. I forget it was like 1.7 seconds. I mean, that was point blank.
Yeah. Let's look at it this way. If you take a look at that game last night or the other night against Detroit, you look at it half full, not half empty. The half full is they got a point. They deserve the point? Probably not. But they got the point, which is going to be huge as this moves on. Like you mentioned, Florida's right behind us. They got those games in hand. Then you've got a circumstance where the Devils just coming off, like they won a couple of games, but they now lost a couple of games. Columbus with a point ahead of us now. They've won 9 in a row. So we got to just leave that all behind us now and win tonight. This is a game that you're playing the New York Rangers. They're out of the playoffs. This has not been a good place for the Flyers this season. Home ice is not an advantage, and they've got to change that if they're going to be successful down the rest of the year and in the playoffs, hopefully, that they get to.
And, Coates, you could add to that and say home ice and the first period. I couldn't believe this. The Flyers have only led after the opening period 14 times in 74 games. Can you put your finger on why they continue to have these slow starts?
It's, you know what, we can send people to the moon, but I can't tell you what happens and why that happens. And then it used to be that you came into the Spectre and the Wells Fargo, everybody knew that you had a 1-0 advantage because the Flyers were going to come at you. Now we ask you how your trip is. Do you want to see a menu and a wine list?
Would you like a mint on your pillow?
Yeah. Everything all right? A plane ride all right? I say that facetiously, but, I mean, come on. This is why they call it home ice advantage, home field advantage, home court advantage.
Coachy, with the overtime losses converted, this is a 500 team. So when you watch this team night in and night out, is this an average team to you?
Well, if you look at the numbers, you know, they had a 5-game losing streak, they had a 10-game losing streak, and you know what? We'll look at that half full too. They were winless streaks. They weren't losing streaks. So I would say that when they're on and they get a good goal, if they get a goaltending performance, and the guys that are supposed to score goals, this is about average for the National Hockey League, where you have 2 good lines, a couple of guys that can score from the blue line, and then the third line's so-so, the fourth line's so-so. Now, what's good about what's happening with the Flyers right now, if they could get Jordan Wheel back to where he was last year, and Simmons on the right side, he had a couple of goals the other night, then you have a third line that can score, which is a unique thing here in the National Hockey League, which should propel you a little bit up a notch as far as your ability to be competitive. So the key is for both Filppula and Wheel to keep up with Simmons to get things going on that third line.
Flyers take on the Rangers. Big one. 5 from the top seed, 5 from out. Very contentious final 8 games. Listen to all the action with Tim Saunders and our guest Steve Coates here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Coatesy, have a great night, pal.
I sure hope so.
Fingers crossed, buddy.
No Lundqvist in goal tonight.
Yeah, maybe that's a, look, we'll take anything we can get.
Yeah, Bulgarian is in net tonight. I haven't looked it up how many Bulgarians we've had played before in the National Hockey League.
Well, should be interesting.
I'll be looking forward to hearing that on the call when you drop that in about the Bulgarians and that stuff.
I tell you what, I'll make sure that gets on the air in the first period.